Fourth test tonight, mate. It's been an absolutely brilliant series. You're calling it on Sky Sport. Excellent. So much to look forward to, and thanks for joining us.
Really looking forward to it. I mean, it's been a hell of a lot of fun. Watching the both teams sort of slug it out. England sort of playing in this pretty carefree and aggressive fashion, and Australia at times not knowing how to deal with it. But England's mistakes have left the series in a position where we've got them exactly where we want them.
Nothing like an Australian side overconfident and brimming with confidence, is it?
Well, no, exactly. I mean, the daft thing is that we could very easily have won the first two test matches and lost the third one ourselves. So it's been crazy to watch for people, for long time test cricket fans. You won't have seen too many series go the way that this one has gone so far, and I don't expect that the last two test matches will be much different either.
What separates it? I mean, it feels like a rice paper between the two teams. A lot of people, Mark, say that the Aussie team is actually a lot better. But when you look at how close, as you say, the tests have actually been, you mentioned the word mistakes before. Is that crucial to you? Have England made too many of them?
England have made, I think particularly in the first two test matches, I think there were occasions where a sort of a more, how should I say it? A more sort of hardened, or more hard-nosed team would have kind of buried Australia in a couple of the scenarios in the first two tests at Edgbaston. For example, the declaration on day one, which I'm still trying to work out.
Yeah, we all are.
I can't think of any good reason why you might have done that. And other scenarios during that first test match where sort of England were on top and managed to somehow turn a winning position into one where they were scrapping, and the same at Lords. At 100, Australia really shouldn't have got 400 in the conditions that they were asked to bat in on the first day. And then, Nathan Lyon blows up a calf and England are 180 for one. And then they proceed to just slog the ball up in the air for the next 2 hours and kind of hand Australia a huge advantage in the first innings. And then I suppose, Australia then favourites from there on, but Ben Stokes sort of drags them back into it. And you're just thinking, wow, I mean, in terms of the runs scored, if you look across the two teams, I think England have actually scored more runs in the test matches, or their batters are averaging better than the Australian ones are, which is just incredible, really, if you think about, to being 2-1 down. And then when it came to the third test match, there was a 2-hour period there on the Saturday where it rained all day, or there was no play, and then suddenly the clouds parted and England got the biggest break of the entire series, really, which was that 2 hours that they were able to bowl Australia out in, leaving themselves with a 250-run chase. And as soon as they were left with a 250-run chase, it was kind of written in the stars that England would chase that down, because that's what they do very well. It's the rest of the game that they're not quite so sure about how to go about it against a good team.
Mark Butcher's with us. He's calling it for Sky Sports, 71 tests for England. You don't want any regrets when you play these matches. I'm absolutely sure of it. And I get the feeling that this series could end with England with a whole lot of regrets and of their own making.
Yeah, possibly. Although I don't think that they will carry many regrets afterwards, no matter what happens. I think one of the beauties of what Ben Stokes and Brendan McCullum, two of your countrymen, have kind of brought to this England team, is that kind of the way they're playing and the entertainment and the thrills that they're providing people are just as important as the results. Now, that is not to say that it didn't hurt like hell when they lost the game at Lords or at Edgbaston. Absolutely, on the contrary, Ben Stokes is one of the most competitive animals you're ever going to meet. So losing is never going to be okay with him. But I think that they're trying to pitch it that there's a bigger picture here around Test match cricket and its place in the world and its place in the sport. And that what they, and in the end, so we're 2-1 down. Lose or draw the next test match and you can't win the Ashes. However, people will be talking about those first three test matches, no matter what happens in this next one, for a very long time, because they've been thrilling to watch. And I think they're as much about that as they are about about winning the Ashes. Now, of course, they want to win it, and again, I reiterate the fact that Stokes, being the competitive animal that he is, wants nothing more than to win the Ashes. But if they kind of lose it narrowly and the whole thing is just epic to watch, then they'll kind of take that as being justifiable in terms of the way that they've gone about it.
It seems crazy talk, Mark. I mean, I'm a grumpy old man, and I love my Test cricket, and I, my kind of my kind of attitude to anyone who doesn't is simply jog on. I mean, look, if you don't understand it and you don't get it, I don't have the time or the patience to even explain it to you. When you look at this series and you look at the interest, and I'm sure that your phone's been running hot. Everywhere you go, people are talking to you about this. It's as good as sport gets, my friend. Look, it's got drama, it's got antics, it's got villains and heroes, it's got storylines, it's got pantomime. I don't know how you can spell sport better than that.
No, exactly, and I think you've summed up exactly how England will feel about it. Now, listen, from my point of view, I remember I was absolutely furious after the Lord's game. The Edgbaston game, I just thought, well, surely they'll learn from that and they won't make the same mistakes again, or they won't allow sort of hubris to get in the way of winning an Ashes series. And then when they lost at Lord's, I was so angry. And I've kind of, since I finished playing and since I've gone into the media and everything, I've prided myself on being able to stand above sort of the parochial feelings and caring too much about who wins and loses, and just trying to be a broadcaster and reading the game and all those other types of things. And I had to have a good long think about why I was so angry about the loss at Lord's, and it kind of came to me 24 hours later, and it was that I played against Australia. I played 20 Test matches against Australia, right? Won 5 of them, maybe drew 2 and lost the rest, right? And got buried in a lot of those games. And the idea to me that you would kind of get on top of any Australian side and then kind of let them off the hook was an anathema to me, and I think that was what really upset me.
Understandable,
about it. Because I spent most of my Test match playing career getting absolutely killed by those guys. So that's where that came from. But I can kind of, now I'm watching them play. You watch Mark Wood tear into Australia at Headingley and kind of turn the whole feeling of the series around just by adding that one player to England's team. And suddenly you think, well, hang on a second. If you've got a batting lineup that is so gung ho that they're happy to smash it down fielders' throats when they got 7 of them on the boundary, and you've got a bowling attack that is very, very capable of knocking a team over in double quick time, because Mark Wood is now in it, and a captain that is capable of doing the most ridiculous things all by himself, you find yourself thinking to yourself, well, actually, if any team can turn over a 2-0 into a 3-2, it's this one. So you kind of, even the grumpiest and most jaded of old cricket watchers can kind of get swept up in the idea that miracles can happen. We'll probably get brought down to earth. It'll probably rain for 3 days in Manchester and ruin the whole thing.
I've been there a few times. It rains non-stop, mate. So
well, exactly, yeah. As anyone who's been there knows. So that is always a likelihood. And then you might turn around and think to yourself, well, wow. We squandered opportunities at Edgbaston, at Lord's, to have things in our own hands. But as it is, it hasn't. What hasn't happened is people were upset, and people were sort of saying that Bazball was all a load of nonsense. And I'd never agreed with that, because I've sort of watched, as you did. You would have done the series against New Zealand last year, the things that Stokes' team did in Pakistan on the flattest pitches imaginable. Even the 1-1 drawn series when England came down there for that sort of low, but it was a very low key Test match in this country, simply because of the time difference and whatever. You kind of look at what they're trying to do in terms of making Test match cricket watchable, and then you plug that in next to the West Indies against India Test match that's just gone by, which was, my God, I could barely bring myself to watch. It's just horrific. And you kind of go, well, okay, well, we can perhaps give them a pass for the idea of trying to entertain at all costs. Now, in the final shake-up, if the Ashes go back to Australia, and Australia have not won here since 2001, since I was playing, for crying out loud. So, there's been a long, proud record of England winning Ashes series, or being able to keep the Ashes by not losing Ashes series here in the UK without playing Bazball. And so in the final shake-up, there will be recriminations if England don't end up turning this one around. But they'll be done from the point of view that perhaps that the style was okay, or the idea behind the style was okay. The execution of it at times needed a little bit more thought and a little bit more care and attention.
Well, Old Trafford, what's going to happen there, mate? Because, as you say, look, I'm a United fan. I've been since I was about 11 years old, and I've been there a lot, and I've been there in summer, and it's rained the whole time. So it's, we're really used to these other test grounds, but we don't actually hear that name that often, in New Zealand. It's normally that, the football's played there. But, this is England, a must-win game. They're not going to approach it any different, are they?
No, absolutely not. No, I mean, it's, they've already named the team, that they've sort of gone through this. It's very much in their style that they'll name the 11, the playing 11, 2 days out at least from the Test match. Looks like Moeen Ali, who has not made a score bigger than 60 since 2017, who's just come out of retirement for 2 years, is going to be batting at number 3. Would you believe? And Jimmy Anderson will come back in, 42 years old, will come back in place of Ollie Robinson to play at the ground where he has an end name named after him, and that's how England will go into it, and they'll tear into the Test match again. And the one thing about the win at Headingley, which was quite revealing, I thought, was that Australia, even when they got England 7 down and Harry Brook was out, they were very un-Australian in the way that they sort of set the field up. They basically allowed England to score 4 and over without having to play a shot. They were so terrified of the sort of the boundary making intention of the England batting lineup, and that went right the way through the lineup. That they kind of allowed England to get there without having to take any risks in the end. And so you can see an area where the whole thing is, even though Australia are on top, and even though Australia have played better cricket in the clutch moments throughout the series, you can see that it's kind of got into their psyche a little bit, and they're not entirely sure how to go about it themselves. So that you've got the thrilling prospect that if England actually don't make so many sort of fundamental errors and take advantage of big partnerships, put big runs on the board, that you might find yourself in a position where Australia really don't know how to go about the Test match. And if it does go down to the Oval with it all being 2-2, then with the home support and the sort of the weight of England winning at home, and just the sheer bravura of England and the way they're playing, and Ben Stokes and his sort of style of captaincy, you could see England doing the impossible. Equally, you could see him getting knocked over for 100 on day one at Old Trafford, and the whole thing being done. The whole thing is that bonkers.
Well, thank you so much for giving us so much time. Very, very generous of you. I've got to just end by saying, look, I love the stat about you that you played 71 tests and no one-dayers, and that was a record I think that you still hold. Do people still give you a jip about that, do they?
Mate, it's a very, very proud record, that.
It's a fantastic record, mate, isn't it?
It's absolute. Yeah, I mean, I still, considering, if we look back over the sort of period of time that I played for England, sort of between 97 and 2004, I mean, through the 90s, virtually everybody played a one-day international at some point. So, I don't know whether I should be proud of it or not.
You got to have words with one of those selectors at some stage if you meet them in the quiet or something, and just say, "Come on, son, what's all that about?"
Seriously, they lost my name. When they were putting it out the hat, they didn't put it in.
Oh, look, delightful talking to you, mate. Thank you so much. As I say, we love your calls on Sky Sport. You're very, very generous. And here in New Zealand, you got a lot of bleary-eyed people who spend, way too much time lying in bed or sitting up on the couch all night in front of the fire because it's winter watching Test cricket, and it's absolutely enthralling, mate. It's fantastic sport. Thank you so much, Mark.
Oh, brilliant. No problem at all. And I'm glad you guys are enjoying it as much as we are.
Devlin.
Oh, how does he do that? How does he do that?
The Platform.